There are tens of millions of donkeys alive on Earth. They carry water, they haul supplies, they cross deserts, they climb mountain paths, they work in villages, farms, and markets every single day. Humans have eaten cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, goats, fish, deer, rabbits, horses in some places, and even insects in many cultures. We are one of the most flexible eaters on the planet. So why don't humans eat donkeys? Why is beef normal, pork normal, chicken normal, goat normal, and lamb normal in many places? But donkey meat is rare? A donkey and a cow are both animals. Both have muscle, both have fat, both are edible in theory. So why did one become dinner around the world, while the other mostly stayed off the menu? The answer is not one reason. It is economics, it is biology, it is taste, it is risk, it is religion, and it is culture. All of those reasons stack together, and they all point to the same conclusion. For most of human history, a living donkey was worth more than a dead one. Let's start with the practical reason. A cow was useful alive too. It could give milk, it could pull loads, it could produce manure, and eventually it could become meat. But in many societies, cattle were also selected and managed as food animals. They grew large, they produced a lot of meat, they could build herds, they became part of farming systems designed around milk, labor, hides, and beef. Donkeys followed a different path. A donkey was not mainly a meat animal. A donkey was transportation. It was a truck before trucks, a tractor before tractors, a delivery vehicle before roads were reliable. In dry, rocky, difficult landscapes, donkeys were incredibly valuable. They could carry heavy loads. They could survive on rough vegetation. They could handle heat. They could walk narrow paths where larger animals struggled. For many families, a donkey was not extra. It was survival. It helped bring water. It moved crops. It carried firewood. It transported goods to market. It helped people travel. Killing that animal for meat would be like destroying your only vehicle because you were hungry for a few days. You might get food once, but after that, how would you carry water? How would you bring grain to town? How would you move supplies? A dead donkey could feed you briefly. A living donkey could support you for years. That is the central reason donkeys rarely became normal food. The economics did not make sense, and the breeding math made it worse. Donkeys reproduce slowly compared with many farm animals used for meat. A jenny, or female donkey, usually carries one foal for about a year. Then that foal needs time to grow. It takes years before a donkey is mature and fully useful. Compare that with chickens, which can reproduce quickly, or pigs, which can have large litters, or goats and sheep, which can build herds more efficiently. If you are trying to raise animals for food, donkeys are a poor choice. They take too long. They produce too few offspring. They require time, space, care, and patience. You do not get a fast, reliable meat supply. You get a slow-growing working animal. That made them valuable, but not as livestock for slaughter. Then there's the issue of meat quality. Donkey meat is edible, and in some places it is eaten. But donkeys are working animals. They are built for endurance, not for producing tender steaks. An animal that spends its life pulling, carrying, walking, and climbing develops lean, tough muscle. That does not mean the meat cannot be prepared well. With the right cooking methods, many tough meats can become flavorful, but compared with animals bred specifically for meat, donkeys were usually less attractive. Cattle, pigs, sheep, and chickens were easier to integrate into food systems. Over time, humans selected them for traits people wanted: growth, fat, flavor, size, and reproduction. Donkeys were selected for strength, stamina, patience, and toughness. Those are wonderful traits in a working companion. They are not the first traits you choose for dinner. So again, the choice becomes obvious. If you have a cow for meat and milk, chickens for eggs and meat, goats for milk and meat, and a donkey for transport, you do not eat the donkey first. You keep it alive. There were also health and safety concerns. Like any meat, donkey meat can carry risks if it is not handled, inspected, and cooked properly. In some regions, horse and donkey meat have been associated with parasite concerns. An unsafe slaughter can spread disease. Today, regulated food systems can reduce many risks, but for much of history, people did not have modern inspections, refrigeration, or veterinary controls. If an animal was old, sick, exhausted, or dead from unknown causes, eating it could be dangerous. And because donkeys were often kept for labor, not meat, they were not always managed like food animals. That meant people often had better, safer, more familiar options. So donkey meat did not become the default, but practical reasons are only half the story. Culture finished the job. When an animal works beside humans for thousands of years, people do not see it the same way they see ordinary livestock. A donkey may not be glamorous, it may be stubborn, it may be humble, but it was close to people. It carried children. It carried elders. It carried tools, water, and harvests. It stood in courtyards and villages. It knew human voices. It became part of everyday life. That closeness changes meaning. Many societies draw a line between animals we eat and animals we work with. Not always, not perfectly, but often. A chicken is usually seen as food. A cow may be food, wealth, or sacred, depending on the culture. A horse may be food in some places and a companion in others. A dog may be a pet in one culture and viewed differently in another. Food taboos are not universal. They are cultural. And for donkeys, many cultures place them closer to helper than meal. The donkey became a symbol of patience, humility, labor, and service. It appears in religious stories, ancient art, trade routes, farming traditions, and rural life. Once an animal becomes a symbol of work and loyalty, it becomes harder to put it on a plate. You do not easily eat the animal that carried your family's future on its back. Religion also played a role. In Jewish dietary law, donkey is not kosher because it does not meet the requirements for permitted land animals. It does not have split hooves and chew cud. In Islamic tradition, the meat of domestic donkeys is generally considered prohibited, while wild donkey has been treated differently in some legal discussions. These religious rules shaped food habits across huge populations for centuries. When major traditions say, "Do not eat this animal," the taboo becomes stronger. Even outside those religions, the general idea often remained. The domestic donkey was not dinner. It was a worker. It was a helper. It belonged in the field, not in the kitchen. Now, there are exceptions, and the exceptions are important. In parts of China, donkey meat is eaten and can be considered a delicacy. One well-known preparation is often described as donkey meat in a crispy bun. In some regions, donkey meat has been used during hardship, famine, poverty, or war. In other places, it may appear in local traditions or specialty markets. So the answer is not, humans never eat donkeys. They do. The real answer is that donkeys never became a common global meat animal. They remained rare on the menu because they were more valuable alive, slower to breed, less efficient for meat, culturally meaningful, and religiously restricted in many places. That combination is powerful. One reason alone might not stop humans. Humans have eaten many difficult foods. We have hunted dangerous animals. We have eaten tough meat. We have overcome risk when the reward was high enough. But with donkeys, the reward was usually not high enough. The donkey was useful every day. Meat was useful once. That is the whole equation. There is also a modern twist. Today, donkeys face serious pressure in some parts of the world because of the demand for their hides, used in certain traditional products. This has created concerns about donkey populations, animal welfare, and the livelihoods of people who depend on working donkeys. That tells us something important. Even now, the biggest value placed on donkeys in some markets is not their meat. It is their skin, their labor, or their role in human systems. The donkey still sits in a strange place. Not quite pet, not quite livestock for meat, not just a wild animal. It is a working companion, a survivor, a partner in hard places. So why don't humans eat donkeys? Because the donkey was too useful alive. It carried what humans could not carry. It survived where other animals struggled. It reproduced too slowly to make sense as meat. Its body was built for endurance, not tenderness. Its cultural meaning grew deeper than food. And in many religions, the line was made official. Humans did not avoid donkeys because we never noticed they were edible. We avoided them because we noticed they were useful. That is the hidden rule behind the donkey's place in history. A cow became a food system. A chicken became a food machine. A pig became a fast-growing source of meat. But the donkey became something else. It became the animal that helped humans move through the world. And for most people, most of the time, that was worth far more than a meal. The donkey was never just meat. It was the back that carried civilization forward.